Hey everyone, it's Bobby from Decoding here, and in this video we will be setting up a virtual machine in DigitalOcean. We'll be SSHing to the machine in Visual Studio Code, and lastly we will be setting up Docker and DockerCompose. So let's jump straight into it. So before I start, if you haven't already, please subscribe and click the bell so you're notified every time I add a video to the channel, and also like and comment on this video because I like to read the comments, I like the feedback, and it helps me create different content. So that's got that out of the way. Let's jump straight into it. If you have already subscribed, by the way, you will know by now that most of my recent videos come with a tutorial on my website. This is that tutorial, okay? So I've got a step-by-step guide here of what we're going to do today and how we're going to get this done. So let's jump straight into it. By the way, if you click this here, that'll open up this video that I'm recording right now. So if you don't want to read along, you just want to watch the video, be my guest. So Syllabus, what will we be doing today? We'll be creating a virtual machine. We'll be connecting to it with a password. Then we'll be doing it with an SSH key. And then we'll be installing all the dependencies. In this case, it will be Docker and DockerCompose. Okay, so prerequisites, we will be using Visual Studio Code. There are other text editors out there like Sublime Text. I like VS Code. It's all encompassing. I've been using it some time now. So I'll be using that, but feel free to use another SSH client such as MobileXterm. I have done a tutorial of that in the past. If you click this here, it will show you how to install it on your machine. But like I said, I'll be using VS Code. So if you want to follow along with this tutorial, get VS Code up and running on your machine and let's crack on. So there are numerous cloud service providers out there, i.e. AWS EC2 servers. You've got a Linode, you've got Google Compute Engine. However, I use DigitalOcean. I've been using DigitalOcean for some time now. I find it very, very easy to use and it's very cost effective. So that's why I'll be using DigitalOcean today. If you click this link, it will take you to DigitalOcean and you'll get, essentially you'll get $100 of free credit on your account. So, be my guest, click that link and you'll benefit straight away as soon as you set yourself up. And that is the first point. You've got to visit DigitalOcean, set yourself up with an account. Once you've got the account, and you can then follow along with the rest of this tutorial. So that's the first thing you need to do. Next, we need to click on the green create button and select droplets. So this is DigitalOcean. I've already got myself set up. This is my decoding account or demo account if you like. We click create, we click droplets. That will open up this screen here. I won't keep flicking backwards and forwards. The step-by-step tutorial on here has lots of images and it walks you through, and we'll be doing that now anyway. So let's go straight into it. You can just keep the defaults for this tutorial. However, if you're setting up a production machine and you might just need to think about what type of machine it needs to be, we'll be using Ubuntu. And then you can select the plan. This is basically the different power that you want, or the different memory sizes that you want on your machine. It defaults to $48 a month, and that is 8 GB of CPU. We've got 160 GB of SSDs, and we've got 5 terabytes of transfer. That's what it defaults to. But if you flick across some of these, you can go to much cheaper plans that we will. Where are we? Premium. We'll just keep it as default for now for this basic tutorial. Then you've got ad block storage. Just don't worry about that. Then it comes to data centers. It defaults to New York. Now go with the data center where you are and most of your users are. I'm in Cambridge in the UK, so London is my closest data center. However, it doesn't really matter. If they've got a data center close to you, then use that, or you can use New York, San Fran, Frankfurt, so on and so forth. So select the right one. Don't worry about much of the, authentication SSH key, we'll be setting up in a second anyway, but we'll set it up with a password. So when we SSH, it will still ask us for a password anyway. So create the root password. Oh, what have I done here? What have I done here? I must have pressed enter. Sorry, right, let's go back on here. There we go. So it has to be 8 characters long, blah, 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 blah. So make sure you get the right sort of password. And finalize the create. This is the default name of the droplet when it's going to be created. You can change that. So we'll call this decoding demo. Add tags, we won't bother about that for this demo, but like I said, if you're doing this in a production droplet, then you might want to start adding different bits and pieces. You can add a backup, so they recommend this. So there's a system level backup that's taken once a week, and it costs you, in this case, this is relative to the price of the droplet itself, but this will cost $9.60 for the month to do this backup. Create droplet, okay? That's what I've done. This closes that one. Go back onto this one, and there we go. I opened up a new screen. So once you click the green create droplet button, it will then take you to this screen, and there'll be a blue line there whilst it's configuring everything out, and a little notification will come up here in a second, and it will say something along the lines of your droplet is ready to go. If you click into this, it will give you the details of the droplet, so the image, the size, the region, I thought I clicked, it doesn't really matter. Decoding, so if we, there's the IP address here, so we can copy that. We'll need the IP address, okay? So in this case, it's 157.245. Don't worry, don't need to blur any of this out because I'll be deleting this at the end of the video. So copy that. Let's go back to our tutorial. So we've done this bit, we've gone through, yada, 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 happy days, and we've got to this point here. That's it, your virtual machine is ready to go. Can you see that? That's a bit better. Yeah, that's a bit better. So your virtual machine is ready to go. Make a note of your virtual machine IP address, as you will need it in a second. So now we want to connect to our virtual machine. So we need to open up Visual Studio Code on a new terminal or in a new terminal. So let's make this a bit bigger for you. And we'll bring this up there a little bit. There we go. That doesn't look too bad. We will need an SSH key pair to SSH to the new virtual machine. In the new terminal, add the following code. So it's SSH Keygen. And it will then generate a public private RSA key pair. What it then asks you to do is detail the path where you want these files to be saved. Now, I want to add mine. It gives you an example of a path. So in my case, it defaults to user, which I'm Bobby. And there's a directory in there called .ssh, and within there, I've got all of my keys. But I've got a directory in there called demo SSH. So we will add that here. .ssh, and then we've got demo underscore SSH, and we'll call this demo. Just double check quickly. Where are we? Bobby, and I can't see the wood through the trees. Where is it? SSH, there we go. Demo SSH. So that's where we're going to be saving this, okay? Press enter, it'll ask you for a passphrase. If you add a passphrase every time you use your SSH, let's say when you're trying to connect, or if you use an SSH key for GitHub, it'll ask you for that passphrase. So it's just another tier of security to the SSH key. We won't use a passphrase on this, but you can in your production key. There you go. And that is complete. We now should have, there we go, we've got it in here. So this one here, so pub file, that's your public key. This other one is your private key. So this is the key pairs. So what you need to do is open up the public key, and this here is a massive, it's an encrypted key. It's very, very big. So you want to highlight the whole thing by pressing Control A, and you can copy that. We'll need that in a few minutes, but not just yet. Go back to the tutorial. So I've gone through all of this here. You'll generate a public private key pair. You will also be asked for a passphrase, and there we go. Is that it? You have to save your key, replace the IP address. Right, so what we need to do now is open up Visual Studio Code. And in the bottom here, let me put clear. It's not liking that. Let's get a new one. Okay, so we want to SSH and root at, now we want to copy our IP address and we want to dump it there. Now we'll SSH in. It will now ask us for the fingerprint. Just put yes. Then it'll ask you for the password that we just set up. Now this is the password we set up on DigitalOcean for the droplet. So hopefully you used one that was memorable. Okay, so we've now connected to the droplet via our password. Okay, that's what we've just done. We now need to add, we now need to save an SSH key to the authorized key. I'll change that in the final version. Use the following code to open up the root user authorized keys file. So this is a file that is by default in the root user directory.ssh. So any SSH key, public key that's added into that file will be authorized to SSH to this server for the root user. We can also, or we will also be using that same method for a non-root user. So we'll be setting up a user called Bobby, giving them the right permissions, and then adding an SSH key to their file as well. So I'm just going to show you how to do both. So if we follow this command here, go back in VS Code, and we're cding, so we're changing the directory to .ssh, then we're opening up a nano, so sudo nano, and authorized keys. And that will then give you the opportunity to paste in the key. So if you go back into the notepad that we opened, you just press Control A, and that will copy everything in the notepad. Copy. Back in here, and we'll right click, and it should appear. There you go. Press Control S, Control X, it will save and exit. So that's all we need to do for root. Adding an SSH key for a non-root user is also pretty easy. Use the following code to create a non-root user, add non-root to the group sudo, set up an authorized keys file, and then open a nano to add your SSH key. So obviously where it says username, ** username, then you'd put the username that you want. So if your name was Fred, it would be Fred. So let's minimize this screen so we can do it like for like. Okay, move that across. So we can go add user Bobby. Password. Okay, it'll ask you for a few other bits and pieces. Just you add them by all means, but we won't for this tutorial. It doesn't really matter. Right, the user Bobby is now added. We then use user mod sudo Bobby, and we put G password a Bobby sudo. Okay, so Bobby is now been added to sudo, so now I have all those privileges. So if we put cd, go back to the base directory, we should now be able to cd into home. And when using the add user command, it creates a directory in there by the same name as the user. So there should be a directory in there called Bobby. So we're cding into it. We now want to make dir .ssh and cd into .ssh. And lastly, we want sudo nano authorized keys. Now I'll open up another nano. If we make sure that we just copy this again, so we're not copying some random stuff in there, right click, Control S, Control X. So the same SSH key has been used for the root user and non-root user Bobby. Now, if you had more different users using different machines, you need to add all of those different keys to those files to make it work. But for all intents and purposes, we have now added the SSH key, so we should be able to connect using SSH. So, like I said earlier, I'm using Visual Studio Code, so this next part is specifically focused on how to configure VS Code to connect via SSH. Like I said at the top of this tutorial, there's a link to how to set up MobileXterm and how to SSH to a server. It's very, very easy. It's not very difficult at all, but this is all VS Code. So firstly, we need to install two extensions. So the first one is Remote SSH. So in VS Code, if you click here and search remote, it will come up with a whole range of stuff. Now, the ones we want, this one here and this one here. By clicking Remote SSH and clicking install, I've already installed it, but if you clicked install there, it would actually install Remote SSH and Remote SSH editing configuration file. That's exactly what you want. You want those on your machine. It will take a couple of minutes, but get them installed on Visual Studio Code. Then, when this is all installed, we want to click the green icon in the bottom left of VS Code, or the bottom left of the screen. Click the Open SSH configuration file and select the path to your SSH key. Okay, so we'll do that now. So bottom left, hope you can see that, click that and it will come up with this here. You scroll down, there's a whole bunch of options, but what we want is to open the SSH configuration file. It will give us a few options, but we want the one for Bobby. That's the one where we just saved our SSH keys, okay? So although config isn't there, it will be as soon as we click it. It is there for me because I set this up as well, but yours might not have that. So if we go into there, sorry, I'll just make this a bit smaller. You can see I've been tinkering around with this. What you need is the IP address. So again, copy the IP address, go into VS Code. These IP addresses don't exist anymore, by the way. I've been just tinkering over the last couple of days. So host is demo. You can call that whatever you want, just something memorable. So when we connect to it, that host name will appear in the host list, which you'll see in a short while. Host name, that is the IP address. Now the user, we've set up root, we've set up Bobby. We'll be just connecting via root. It's no big deal. But if it was Bobby, in this case, you would put, in fact, you could just change that to Bobby. It wouldn't matter because we're using exactly the same SSH key. So in this, we would want identity file, so .ssh, and then it's demo SSH, and it's demo. That should, if I save, just double check. So host is demo, host name is correct, the root name, the user is root, and the identity file is .ssh, which is correct, and then it's demo SSH and /demo. So remember, demo is the private key, so that's the pair. So the public key goes in authorized keys. Private key is what you're pairing it up with here. So save that. And now what we need to do is click this again. Now demo should appear in connector host. So we've got Docker test, which is this top one. We've got demo, which is this one. Click demo. It'll open up a new instance of Visual Studio Code. It's connecting. So that's what it's doing down here. It's actually connected straight away. Sometimes, as it does say on here on the tutorial, it will ask you for, in this drop down, please select the platform for the remote host demo, click Linux. Okay, that's what you need to click, and it should then all set up. You shouldn't have any problems. It doesn't like white space in the config file, so just be careful of that. Just make sure that you've got it all in there correctly. But other than that, you should now be connected via SSH. So if we look in Visual Studio Code, it should give me the option to open a folder, and then you can put root. If I click OK, it will show me all of the directories in my panel. There we go, probably haven't got any in there. There you go. So this is my root directory. So remember we had SSH, authorized keys, that's what we added in there, okay? And if we were to connect to, let's disconnect, close remote connection, open up another one, connect to host, demo, and then connect to, it'll give us an option. But if you delete root, so go home/Bobby, trailing slash, click OK. That will then connect to Bobby. And if I open this, it will show the everything in there that we've added in there. So we added the .ssh and we added the authorized keys. Happy days. So there we go. we have now connected via SSH. So now what we need to do is install dependencies. Okay, so open a new terminal. Well, we don't need to actually, we've got one open. But open a new terminal that is connected via SSH. That's what you need to do. The first thing we need to do is update and upgrade package information. To do that, you use the following commands. So sudo apt update terminal. Let's minimize that. There we go. We don't need this. Sudo apt update. I'll go about and go through the processes. Then you want sudo apt upgrade. This will take a second or two. But whilst that's doing that, we'll flick back here. So we'll be installing DockerCompose using curl and Docker using Docker repository or the Docker repository. Run the following command to make sure you have all the correct packages on your virtual machine. So we want sudo apt get install, and we've got CA certificates, curl, GNUPD, and LSB release. So copy this, go back in the VS Code. It should, it's still going, it's 72%. Once we've got this next part done, we'll be adding Docker's official GPC key with the following. So they're the next two commands we'll be doing. 98%, won't take much longer. Okay, so that's now done. We now need to, let's copy this again. And we will paste that in there. Where are we? Oh, didn't like that. 1 second. Let's just see if it works like this. If not, we'll manually add it. Okay, well, I will have to change that. So sudo apt get install curl. Already got it. CA certificates. Yeah, I'll change this for you. What else have we got? We've got GNUPG. And sudo apt get install. Won't like that. There we go. So we've now got all of the packages, all the dependencies that we need. So we need to add Docker's official GPG key with the following. So we'll copy this across, go back in here. Can we clear that? Yes, we can. Makes life a bit easier. So we'll add that. We then need to use this command here, which will bring everything in, which should do. There we go, that's that done. And then we sudo apt update, and then we get install, and we've got in Docker CE, CLI, and a container IO. There we go, is that right? Update, and then we will press that. Yes. Okay. That's doing whatever it needs to do. Next, verify the Docker engine is installed correctly by running the hello world image. So we just want sudo docker run hello world. So that'll work as soon as we've done this. There we go. So you should see this anyway. So hello from Docker. This is just an indication that it works. So if you actually put Docker version, it should then say, yeah, Docker 201012. Okay, so that's Docker installed. I said Dogger then. If If everything went well, you should see this. Yeah, great. And we now move on to DockerCompose. So run the following command to download the current stable release of DockerCompose. So we'll copy that, go in here. Firstly, let's clear. There we go. That looks like that worked. Then we need to apply the executable permissions. So go back in here. There we have it. And lastly, we need a symbolic link. You might not actually need this, but I do this anyway. It never fails, or hasn't failed me. There we go. And that's it. DockerCompose should be installed correctly. So we use DockerCompose -- version. It should come up with, there you go. So DockerCompose version 1.29.2. Obviously, it depends when you're doing this. That will be a different version. That is us done. So, conclusion, what have we done? We've set up a virtual machine. So we used a droplet on DigitalOcean as our virtual machine. It's a Ubuntu Linux server. So we set that up. We've connected to it with a password first and foremost in Visual Studio Code. Then we created some SSH key pairs, added an SSH key to the authorized keys and connected via SSH. And lastly, we installed Docker and DockerCompose. So that's me basically done. So like I said at the start, if you haven't already, please subscribe and click that bell so that you're notified every time I add a new video to the channel. And also, if you could, drop me a like, drop me a comment, because it's massively helpful. And also I like the feedback. It helps me create content along the lines of what you actually want to see. So thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed making it, and I hope it proves to be a very, very useful video for you. I'll be seeing you in the next video. Thank you.